My name's Benji Stiles. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, Algiers, and I've lived all over the country. Lived in Dallas for a while, Seattle. Went to high school in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I've been in Houston for more than 25 years now. Kind of stumbled into a high school photography class. I wasn't enrolled in the class. I had a buddy that was in the class, and we were supposed to hang out after school. He had to go to the photo lab, so I met him in the photo lab, and like what I saw in the lab was just like it blew my mind. Watching the photos go through the chemicals and kind of magically appear. There were these moments in my life that was like shown art, and it kind of exposed to art, and I was like, that looks interesting. Photography, that moment with photography in high school, changed the direction of what I would do the rest of my life. And a lot of the threads from those early beginnings, doing street photography, wandering, taking pictures of, urban landscapes, objects, and just kind of that meandering and wandering, I think would later become a really a big part of my practice as far as found objects. And then in college, I took an art history class with Dr. Nancy Jersick, and that kind of was the second moment. I was like, this is what I think I want to do, and kind of led to teaching and education. Once I learned about art history at the University of St. Thomas, that led to wanting to take studio classes at Glassell, and so that kind of opened my world up to contemporary art. Moved into education after school, after college, bounced around, worked in commercial photography for a while, worked for a couple different commercial photographers, got a job back working at Glassell School, teaching. So I was teaching photography to high school students in the summers. So that was kind of the beginning of my teaching career. And I think I really didn't start working in earnest, like focused on professional practice until, about 6 years ago. I was making some paintings, didn't have a studio yet, but was starting to paint quite a bit, and I made a series of paintings, and they weren't particularly amazing works, but I think it's something about that process and that period of time, and I knew that I had to do that for the rest of my life. I had to make art for the rest of my life. When I got my first studio at Hardy and Nance about 4 years ago here, having artists and to talk to about work, being part of a community that really works to maintain the gallery, that's been an incredible experience. And then outside of Hardy and Nance, group shows through the years, the arts, it's a tough way to make it, and you have to have support of it within a community, and you have to be there to help support a community to make it and for it to be fulfilling. You cannot do it alone, and I think that's critical. Early on, it was about mark making and experimenting with colors. I wanted to kind of start at what I thought was the beginning of making, which is literally putting the brush or the pencil or something on a surface and making marks, and then kind of build from there. I think I enjoy the entire process. I like watching the paintings and being part of the paintings. And sometimes I feel like I'm watching from the outside, and I'm watching the paintings as they're constructed and as I'm making them. Sometimes get lost in the surface and stay up close and just making without taking in the whole painting, and then step back and kind of see what's happening. I think with abstract work, it's a puzzle. You're creating the puzzle and then mixing it up and then putting it back in a different way. So I think early on, I was kind of creating problems that I didn't know were going to be problems, and then having to solve those problems. And I think the more I work, I found myself falling into these patterns. And the one thing I didn't want to do is the work to get repetitive. And so I would start to create patterns, or if I did something that I thought was kind of lovely, I would intentionally kind of destroy that or part of it. I think it made it easier to take risks. It's never really easy to take risks when you think, wow, this is a good painting, but it's not the next level painting. But the only way you get to that next level painting is by taking the big risks. And most of the time, for me anyway, it ends up falling apart. But when it doesn't fall apart, that's when I get something that I feel more satisfied with. The human touch and making marks is really important to me. Time is really important to me. I tend to fall in the pattern of using the same colors, and now I'm trying to really push out and use colors that I wouldn't use, or intentionally mix stuff that's supposed to look bad, make terrible grays, and then see how I can make them work with the rest or highlight those colors. I think at times for me, it's as exciting to break the painting as it is to make something that is lovely, or a series. I'm starting to be more excited by the edges of paintings and stuff that isn't stretched and kind of moving. I think I'll always continue to paint in the more traditional format. I'll do some of that work, but I think paintings that are unstretched on the wall, coming off the wall, on different surfaces, hung in different ways, not as a gimmick, but just I think how they relate to the space is more interesting to me. It used to be what's in the rectangle, that's what's interesting, and how do I treat that? And now it's more, the edges, how does it hang? How does it work with the space in general? So that becomes, I think, more important. Also the relationship to other works. I think some of the work that is in the Texas Emerging is kind of more representing some newer directions in my work. For the first time, kind of working with acrylic and vinyl paints, so flash paints and acrylic paint, mixing them together. I've been kind of very steadfast in my working with oil and working to push the limits, or for me, the limits of working with oil paints. I think the work in a number of the pieces in Texas Emerging and some of the stuff that I was working on at MICA over the summer, it's a little quieter. I think it's less expressive, or maybe less aggressive, more quiet, more still. I feel like that's where I want to connect with people, is I want them to not be tricked into looking at a painting, not for it to overwhelm them, but for them to want to dig into the work and look at the work and spend time with it. And I want it to be a meaningful experience. Maybe it's quiet, maybe it's brief, or maybe it's longer. So I think those quiet moves are really important. And I believe that we need it in the world more than ever. Kind of that humanity, the actual artwork, and that relationship between the artist and the work and the viewer. And then also some of that through line, you know, the authorship of the work, I think, is really shared with the community and the inspiration that it comes from. I mean, that's how I learned to paint, is not just living life, but looking and talking, looking at other work and talking to other artists. That's really, that's what I tell my students to do. Get to know other artists, look at a lot of work, and then, you know, I think the work should be, for me, the work should be important to me, but there's also an end goal of connecting to people. Not out of this desperation, again, it's not out of that, it's really, you know, this is what I've got, you know, take it or leave it, and hopefully you connect. I couldn't be more thrilled to be in Texas Emerging, so really excited about this show.